New England Patriots kicking off at 1 o'clock today here at Gillette Stadium. I am Doug Kye, joined by fellow NESN.com Patriots beat reporter Zach Cox and The Athletic and NESN's Matt Chatham, former Patriots linebacker. We've got ourselves quite a matchup here. Let's kick this show off, though, with some news that broke on Friday. Let's start off with the non-game stuff and then get into the game stuff. And even the non-game stuff has a little bit to do with the game. Brian Flores, the Patriots linebackers coach / de facto defensive coordinator, reportedly expected to be hired as the Miami Dolphins' new head coach. So Matt, you've kind of been through this sort of thing before. In 2004, both Romeo Crennel and Charlie Weis were leaving the Patriots for head coaching opportunities. Is this a distraction? Do you expect this to be a distraction? Do you expect Brian Flores to be all in for these postseason games?
Yeah, he'll be all in, and I think the NFL's a weird animal, guys, and that there's kind of rumors in every locker room every year. Anyway, this is a little bit. This rises to the level of a pretty definitive rumor,
right?
But I think we've obviously seen situations for the last several years where you could have entered this game as an offensive player, not knowing if Josh was going to be back.
Right.
Yet he is, right? And so I think this is kind of something that always happens. I think more than anything, it's happy for them. This is a group that loves that guy.
Yeah.
They love playing for him. It's unfortunately might be a pretty small window that they got to see him in that role, but I think it really had no effect on today whatsoever.
Yeah, based on everything that we've heard from the players talking about their relationship with Brian Flores, it does seem like he has really kind of the respect of this entire locker room. So if it has any effect, I think it'll kind of galvanize it a little bit more to say, hey, this guy's leaving, let's go on and win some games for him.
And if Flores does leave, the top in-house candidate would be defensive line coach Brendan Daly. He was actually the one who was calling plays in week 4 of the preseason when Brian Flores was already preparing for week 1. Top out of house or outside candidate would be Greg Schiano, the former Tampa Bay Buccaneers head coach, former Rutgers head coach. He already has a previous relationship with Devin McCourty, Jason McCourty, Deron Harmon from their days with the Scarlet Knights. So we'll see how everything shakes out after the season. But for now, it looks like Brian Flores will be leaving for the Dolphins after this postseason wraps up. And we'll see if he leaves after this game, leaves after the AFC Championship game, leaves after the Super Bowl. But today, like I said, we got Chargers, Patriots. If you can't tell from looking at us, it's quite cold outside, which could affect the game a little bit. Patriots are undefeated at home, but the Chargers are undefeated outside of LA County this season. They have been a very good road team, not quite as good at home because basically they don't really have a home. They play in a 25,000-seat stadium that is usually half full with the opposing team's fans. So I personally think that, no matter how good the Chargers were on the road this season, the home field advantage still really goes to the Patriots here, especially since it's currently about 20 degrees outside.
Let's put it this way. I'll tap into a little Jets experience from the past, and I remember we had a pretty good road team in that New York year. We came up here, won in the regular season. You'll remember they ripped up the grass after. Then we had to come back here and play in the playoffs, and we got our ass whooped. And I'll put it to you this way. All the stats in the world don't matter. What matters is those 5 banners you see up there. It's a very intimidating place. You can build up a record of road wins in other places, but those other places are not this place. And the one thing that I will say that's a little bit unique to here, and again, I'm not saying that as if that guarantees a Patriots victory. Right. I'm just saying the road record is not this place. This is different. Think of it like golf. You're playing at Pebble Beach. This is a different place than all the others. I don't care what you do at the Flat Course TPC in Florida. So the one thing I will say, though, that the Chargers have not done that is pretty relevant, actually it's 2, it's not just 1. They've done the East Coast or the west to east trip. They've done the left to right thing, and they've done it on 1 o'clock games, which for them and their own sort of body clocks is 10 a.m. So they've done that. They've crossed that hurdle, I think, several times this year. And they had
last week.
Yeah, exactly. What's new and what's different and what sucks as a player is when they've had to do those in the past, they've come back home. Or they've gone to a local road game. They didn't do it twice. And what matters, I think, when you want to bring up that point is that you're trying to make a point that fatigue matters, right? Mm-hmm. Fatigue is one thing. It's a 5-round boxing match. Tough ones are the 10, and that's going there, coming back, going there, and coming back. That's the really difficult part, and that's a new challenge for them today. Not saying they won't handle it well, but they haven't handled it. So I think that's different, and I also think the weather is significantly different. They've had one 38-degree game, so they've had a game in the 30s, and they handled that pretty well.
They did win that game.
Exactly, they did. They played well in that situation, but 10 degrees is a big deal in football from a ball handling standpoint. The thing you'll look for is tackling and 1-2 on going to the ground, and that's something I noticed 2 years ago. You all remember the Dolphins going up to Pittsburgh and getting their ass kicked a couple seasons ago. I believe it was in the wild card round. And what you often see with the really warm weather teams that aren't used to that, when it gets really cold, the difference between 35 and like 21, it's a big deal. Yeah. it's going to the ground. It's tackling to the ground. The ground is hard. A lot of guys just want to stay up. So you'll look at the ball handling, and they want to be on the ground. It sounds kind of corny, but it's a very real thing.
Yeah, two things I was going to bring up. The one that you brought up of the kind of back-to-back traveling east. The Chargers are basically playing 2 consecutive 10 a.m. games
tough, man.
with a couple cross-country flights mixed in there. That's tough to do for a team. And even though they do have some wins in some pretty quality locations this year. I mean, they've won in Kansas City, they've won in Pittsburgh, they've won in London, they've won in Baltimore last week. It is very, very difficult for teams to win on the road here, especially when you're a team from Southern California, from a warm weather climate, that really just doesn't have the experience playing in this game. I mean, Phillip Rivers has been around forever. He's played in 4 games where the kickoff temperature has been below 30 degrees. In his entire career, he's 1-3 in those games. Tom Brady's played in 27 of them. He's 23-4, 11-1 in the playoffs. The Patriots just have so much more experience in these kind of games. I don't know if that will be the kind of deciding factor in this game. I don't think it will. I think I'm kind of leaning toward where Bill Belichick is, where he's saying we're not playing against the weather, we're playing against the Chargers. The Chargers still have a very good chance of winning this game, but I think it'll definitely kind of play some sort of factor in this game.
Real quick on that, Bill says that because he needs the players not to think that, but it doesn't mean it's not true. And I think that's one of the things that you don't want it seeping into the head of your own players, because you don't want to think, oh, we're good to go, it's cold out, I'm going to win. You need them focusing on every little minute detail. But what does often happen in these games, and again, I've been in there where you're standing across from the tight end who's got his hands in his pants in the huddle. When you're getting out on the play between a timeout and the other team from Miami or from whatever is standing in the huddle during the TV timeout shivering. It's a very real thing. I think what often happens, quite frankly, is they played in a few cold weather games, but the problem is you don't get a practice in it, so your body doesn't acclimate as much. And what you'll tend to see when these guys struggle with things like this is a couple bad series. We're not saying like wall to wall they're going to be out there shivering. It's just you drop a pass in an untimely kind of moment early in the game. You have just sort of a glitch that wouldn't be there, and then you get acclimated. But if you get acclimated by the third or fourth quarter, sometimes it's too late. That's the only thing. I mean, it's something. It's not nothing. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, and even Phillip Rivers going back even higher as a temperature rate, only 1-4 in games below freezing. So, yeah, he really does not have a lot of experience in games this cold. And the Patriots really have been a completely different team at home this season. Way better passing the ball, way better defending the pass, way better running the ball, way better defending the run. So, overall, major advantage for the Patriots here. Let's get into last week's Chargers game a little bit. This has been a big topic of conversation all week. Chargers came out basically in a quarters defense for the entire time, facing off against Lamar Jackson, the Ravens. 7 defensive backs, 4 defensive linemen. They only had 1 play where they used their linebackers, and this was for 2 reasons. One of which, they wanted to chase around Lamar Jackson. Second of which, their top 3 linebackers are all on injured reserve. So they've got Kyle Emanuel and Hayes Pullard as their only linebackers, and that's the biggest weakness on that team right now. So I think, personally, you attack that weakness in this game, and that would be using James White out of the backfield, catching passes, Rex Burkhead a little bit, maybe Rob Gronkowski when he's matched up against linebackers, but I think that you definitely want to force them to keep those linebackers on the field, and that probably means a heavy utilization of James Devlin, Dwayne Allen, Rob Gronkowski, maybe bigger fronts up front for the Patriots.
I totally agree. I mean, I think this could be, we've all talked about James White all week because the Chargers have had such difficulty defending running backs in the passing game this season. I mean, the number of receiving yards they've allowed to running backs, second most in the NFL in the last 10 years. So they've really struggled in that regard this season. But if they decide to go with their kind of quarters defense at all, I think they will actually be okay with defending running backs. If you got a safety covering James White, you're in a much better situation than if you have a linebacker, especially a slower linebacker covering James White. That's why I think this could be a sneaky Sony Michel game, as you kind of alluded to there. If the Chargers do continue to kind of go light, and I don't think they'll be able to go as light in this game as they did against Baltimore. But if they try to play some of those defenses, put James Devlin in there, put Sony Michel in there, make them prove that they can stop a kind of power run up the middle with 4 safeties on the field. I don't think they can. I mean, they do have some physical defensive backs. They got a very physical defense overall, but I think that kind of matchup would definitely favor the Patriots. What's your read on this here?
So there's a couple things I think that are really important to point out here that could change a little bit. The Baltimore game, Doug hits the nail on the head in regards to the fact that it was of necessity. I think they're out there for a reason to defend Lamar Jackson, but then also because they're run a little low, right? The other thing that happened is Brandon Mebane had an unfortunate thing with his daughter, and Brandon is one of the guys that you probably don't know at home. You'd poll a lot of the guys across the NFL, and every offensive lineman in the NFL knows all about Brandon Mebane. He's a guy that, you remember Chris Snee. The old Chris Snee is a Boston College guy, all-time giant down there in New York. And when he got done, he and I did some media work together, and he talked about the guy that's one of the best guys you see week in and week out, but that nobody knows about, it's Brandon Mebane. Brandon Mebane, when he was in Seattle, that was when he, sort of more the meat of his career, was one of the really good run defenders. He's not a pass rush guy, so you don't hear about him as much, but he's a great two-gapper. He's a great pocket pusher. He's just a guy that makes a mess for other people to clean up. He wasn't there a week ago, and it wouldn't have been the kind of game where he'd have been a big factor, but if the Patriots do go big, they have him now, and that could change things slightly. I say that, and the Patriots' offensive line is much better than the Ravens. I know there's an all-pro there at one of the spots, but by and large, the Patriots' depth across is much better. The quality of depth, I guess, across all five. And I think they're really built to go after a team quarters. Screw that. If they go nickel, they are allowing even additional defensive back on the field and are willing to put him in the box. Let Gronk go block him. Let the tight ends double up to them. They'll kill him in that regard. So you're going to invite that. You hope that. And I think one of the best little lessons that we can take from this, if you're watching home, I'm sure you watched it last night, a lot of you anyway, they'll watch that Rams game. The Rams against the Cowboys. The Rams, look at the top, back up a second here. Look at the top offenses in the NFL this year. Rams, the Saints, the Patriots are back a notch from that. I think it was Atlanta between them, at least as far as scoring. What are they doing? They're all under center. Jared Goff was under center more than anyone in the league at 62%. They run the heck out of the football. Breeze was right behind him at 56%, I believe it was, under center, running the heck out of the football, targeting the hell out of their backs, and they kill you off play action from that. But they go big when you get these big. I mean, the Dallas Cowboys is as big and as athletic as you'll see out here with San Diego, LA. But that was the approach. They didn't scare. It wasn't, man, they're pretty fast at linebacker. Man, they've got a couple of really good pass rushers. Let's spread out and go fast. It was not that at all. They got under center, and they lived under center, and they kicked their butt in it. So I'm curious. It's not as if the Patriots can't do that, because we know Tom Brady in that 2-minute mode, getting the gun and stuff, they can do it. And they did it a lot last week against the Jets, or 2 weeks ago. But they're built to do what the other best offenses are doing. I just think it's sort of a kind of offense they've grown in as the year has gone along.
Yeah, one last quick note on Brandon Mebane there. Tom Brady this week called him one of the best run defenders he's ever played against. So the Patriots certainly respect what he can do down in the trenches there.
One more point on the Chargers linebackers before we move on. The Chargers linebackers who are actually on injured reserve, two of them at least, Kaiser White was a college safety. Jatavis Brown was 5'11", 220, or is around that size. So it's not quite as extreme for the Chargers to be using safeties at linebackers as it might be for the Patriots when they've got 265-pound Dante Hightower, 250-pound Kyle Van Noy. But it just does speak to their, I guess, defensive system overall that they're using undersized guys.
Especially
220 is a nugget in the NFL. That ain't
especially
right,
exactly. Even at full strength, they had been running kind of their dime defense basically as their base defense. Their dime was basically their base when they came here last year. So, yeah, not quite as extreme as it would be for some other teams.
Cordarrelle Patterson is going to be playing in this game. He was removed from the injury report. I think this is big for the Patriots. He's not a full-time player, obviously. I think he only played about 200 offensive snaps this season out of 1,000, but he really made every offensive snap count. He was averaging 2 yards per snap, over 2 yards per snap. He was their most elusive running back when he was playing that running back role, had the most yards after contact per attempt. Also, Tom Brady had a 141 passer rating while targeting Cordarrelle Patterson. So while he wasn't an every down player, while he definitely was a gadget guy on offense, he was a big weapon when he was on the field.
Yeah, so, I mean, I think it
almost had a cameo by Tom Curran here. Professional TV person walking in front of cameras.
I think it tells you everything you need to know, too, about Cordarrelle Patterson, about how much the Chargers kind of fear him. They signed an extra kicker this week just to kick the ball through the end zone, so to kind of limit Cordarrelle Patterson's touches, which is pretty incredible. You never see an NFL team carry 2 kickers for a game anymore. They signed a guy off the street because Michael Badgley he'd been great at field goals, hadn't been getting the ball into the end zone on kickoffs, and they really just want to keep the ball as far away from Cordarrelle Patterson as you can. I think he can have an impact in this game, special teams, offense. He did not play in Week 17. Did seem like that was sort of a kind of a maintenance thing maybe because he had been practicing the whole time. He'd been limited in practice. I'm sure if that was a playoff game, he probably could have been able to be out there. I'm sure they just kind of wanted to rest him, let that knee heal up. But I think he could definitely be a factor in this game.
So one of the things to point out here in regards to that, I understand them making the transaction with a kicker. It's cold out here. Ball's hard as a rock. Air pressure changes, folks. I think you heard about this. And what you shouldn't expect is a lot of deep balls, quite frankly. Or to get them deep, you got to kick it really flat. And if they're willing to kick this really flat ball just to get it beyond the end line, we've seen Cordarrelle take those kind of balls out because he wants to return
4 or 5
the
yards
ball.
deep in the end zone,
He wants to take it out. And I don't blame you on a day like this because most kickers, the good ones, want amplitude and to stick the thing deep. If you have to kick it low to get it across that end line, it very may well come out and it is a big weapon for them. But Doug brought up Cordarrelle as a receiver, and I think that part is something that, okay, let's put it this way. You're playing on the defense for the Chargers this week. You've been watching film of the other team all week. Cordarrelle did not play last week. Instead, they used Philip Dorsett in the jet role quite a bit. The jet motion, which is where the pre-snap move and looks like Canadian football kind of thing. Big in college football now. But the teams I referenced before, the Rams do it a lot. Saints do it a lot. Patriots are relying really heavily on it. And it worked really good for them in the Jets game to kind of spread the linebackers out. You get guys sort of pointing. I got him as the motion's coming. And then you find interior
you
gaps
get that
from
second
that.
of hesitation.
Yeah, you get that, is this going to be pass or run? And then they widen out. It hurts your pass rush. It hurts your run fits. It's a really good thing. And it's one of the concepts. I make fun of the college football a lot, and, I cover it during the season. But it's one of the concepts that has really translated well and really has been helpful. And it screws up fronts. Let's put it that way. The other thing I'll say here is, and you kind of touched on it, just sort of the efficiency. He doesn't get a lot of time, but when he gets a lot of time, he does something. So I think he's a great player. I think usage can sort of lull people into thinking someone is different than what they are. He's a scary guy if you're lined up across from him. He's a scary guy if he's in the game. And the cool thing that happened because he wasn't active last week and Dorsett was, again, if you were watching film of these guys all week and looking for tendencies and trying to figure out packages where they do things, you have a so-called gadget guy. There's the guy that the reverse may go to. There's the guy that the tunnel screen may go to. There's the guy that might throw the ball or something, or they might do a stop and go and shot him or something. Dorsett's that guy now too. So if you're a linebacker, they break the huddle. It's like, damn it, they got two of them. Which one is it? You really don't know. And I think that's a really nice compliment to Julian, is going to be out there doing the more traditional stuff. Hogan will be out there and be as dependable as ever. And Gronk is a complementary piece now in the passing game. So I actually really like that foursome. With usage, I think people will get a greater appreciation of just how good Cordarrelle and Philip Dorsett are.
Let's combine these topics. Let's talk about pressure a little bit in this game. Chargers have got Melvin Ingram and Joey Bosa rushing the quarterback. And usually when we talk about these pass rushers over the course of the week, we're, oh my God, J.J. Watt, Jadeveon Clowney, Whitney Merciless. Then they don't really wind up doing anything in the game. Last year, though, these guys did do a lot in the game. They had 17 pressures total against Tom Brady. They did have a sack or two in that game as well. So they're definitely players to watch. On the other side of the ball, Patriots, not so great at sacks this season, but they're among the top pressure percentage teams in the NFL. And Phillip Rivers is probably the least mobile quarterback they've faced all season. And that really plays a big role because they don't have to worry about contain like they do against the Deshaun Watsons or, in Week 6 against Patrick Mahomes or a lot of these other quarterbacks. Yeah. Phillip Rivers is a statuesque guy back there where they don't need to, worry about those edge containments and everything in this game. I think that's a big part.
I would say they actually did a reasonably good job against Joey Bosa and Melvin Ingram last year. 17 pressures is an insane amount of pressures for one game. That's more than 10 teams had against the Patriots last season. But I think most of those pressures were kind of expected pressures. Tom Brady was getting the ball out so quickly last year that really, as soon as Bosa or Ingram got within 2 or 3 feet of him, the ball was already out to Brandon Cooks or to James White or to anybody. And they only had one sack in that game. They only had one quarterback hit in that game. And their kind of impact didn't really affect the outcome of the game. I think a little bit later in the game, they made it a little bit more of they kind of got him a little bit more involved and kind of flustered Tom Brady a little bit more. But I think the Patriots would sign up for another game just like that game here last year, especially because they weren't kind of the game records that they were against Baltimore last week. I mean, those two guys combined for 3 sacks against Baltimore last week. All 3 came from rushing inside, so they like to move Ingram in, especially Ingram, sometimes Bosa too. They'll bump them inside. They really just kind of tore apart the Ravens guards last week. And I think if the Patriots, if there's kind of the same kind of thing happens this week, the Patriots could be in trouble. But if they handle them the same way they did here last year, I don't think that's the worst thing in the world.
Here's how you handle pass rushers are as good as those guys. And I love that Doug touched on both Clowney and Watt, because I think this is sort of a junior version of those guys. Bosa's not quite as heavy as Watt is, but he's a little bit taller. He's a little bit bigger. He's an end. just like Watson but they can bump down. And Ingram is a little closer to Clowney. Not quite as freakish. Clowney is different than everyone in the league, but it's
2 Gamecocks too.
Yeah, 2 Gamecocks, exactly. But they are 2 guys that they don't, it's not like left end, right end kind of stuff. They'll bounce around. Ingram will be inside.
Ingram plays a lot of linebacker on third down. He kind of bounces around.
You'll actually see him a lot like they often see Dante Hightower, standing at the Mike linebacker and running down and hitting the guard. You see Kyle Van Noy do that some as well. So it's a matter of sort of locating them. And again, they're a 4-man rush team. They're not going to blitz a ton. They feel really good about their 4 down. They like to scramble the 4 down to create a little bit of confusion. But it's more just about locating. When you have 4 and you're blocking with either 5 or 6, 5 just being the offensive lineman, 6 means you're leaving a tight end or a back, one of the 2, there's going to be free people. So you just never want to put Bosa on an island, one guy, when you got a free guy helping someone else. Both of them, and I want you guys to watch this at home when you're checking the game out today, they both spin a lot. This isn't quite Dwight Freeney, but both of them love to spin, and the thing is they'll set you up and they'll spin back, and if they're spinning back to where the help left, that's where the vacancy is. So it's good to kind of keep an eye on that. But all those things said are about pass rush, and the number one way, it's the easiest thing in the world in just fundamental football to stop pass rushers is not to block them better, it's not to come up with a better scheme to block them better. It's to make sure that on every snap, when the ball snaps, they play run technique first, then they transition to a rush. That's how you stop a pass rusher. It is harder than hell to get a really good rush if you're, oh no, I gotta go. Yeah. The way that they become dangerous is if down after down, they're aligned, wide 9, and they're screaming off the line of scrimmage because Brady's standing in the gun. Yeah. And I think, again, this really plays in. How do you slow them down? Well, you have them under center, and there are going to be moments where Tom's in the gun. I'm not saying that it should ever be exclusively one or the other, but it's just keeping it multiple. Slow them down. If you let them know what it's going to be, if you want to throw it 55 times, they could be a problem.
Well, let's get into our keys for this game, and we'll kick it off with offense. And I'll actually kind of build off your point there that the Patriots' key on offense is to take advantage of your balanced offense. And part of this is actually getting out to an early lead or to not let the Chargers get out to an early lead so that you can run the football, so that you can have a balanced offense with running the ball, passing the ball. But really what it comes down to is matching up against what the Chargers are doing. If the Chargers want to come out in quarters defense and put a bunch of defensive backs on the field, then run the ball down their throat. And if they want to come out trying to defend the run, then I think the Patriots will be able to pass the ball. Tom Brady definitely looked a lot better in Week 17 than he did in the previous 10 weeks against the Dolphins, Steelers, and Bills. So I think that the passing game will be back on track for the Patriots in this game if they need to use it. But just keep away from what the Chargers are doing. Try to match up and use your balanced offense in this game. And if that's the case, then, like you said, Bosa and Ingram can't come after the quarterback because they do have to play those run techniques.
Yeah, I'm going to touch back on something I mentioned earlier with Sony Michel. I think if he might not be kind of the star of this game for the Patriots, but if the Patriots can establish some semblance of a running game, kind of force the Chargers to get away from what they want to do on defense. Basically, force them to put more big bodies on defense. Then if the Chargers can successfully play quarters or dime this entire game, that does not favor the Patriots. That definitely favors the Chargers. So establish some sort of running game, make some of those kind of reserve third, fourth, fifth string linebackers come onto the field for the Chargers. I think that matchup favors the Patriots.
So the one thing I'll stick with the Patriots is a little off of just the X's and O portion and just sort of the themes that have been an issue in the last maybe month or month and a half. They have been very efficient moving the ball, generally speaking. But it's been the toe stubbing, and I think we're in the playoffs now. This is a really important time. Obviously, it's do or die kind of stuff, but they can't have the drive stopper. You can't have the operation penalty from a tackle. You can't have a false start by a wide receiver. You can't swim down the field and just blow it out and then get a negative play on first down on the 20-yard line. So I think it's a really big day. It's of utmost importance now to have a clean operation day. It's going to be harder for them to play here than for you. So you need to have a clean day. It needs to be a day where you absolutely hammer them on turnover differential. You don't give away one or two cheap ones. You don't give away drives. When we do our picks at the end, I'll talk about why the drive efficiency is very important because both teams don't allow a lot of them. There aren't a lot of drives that are going to happen with either side, at least historically. So I think it's definitely a game where you pay attention to the markers that we usually look at. No free possessions. Don't give any away, and that'll go a long way. Because I think they're growing to something that's better, but they certainly haven't put a product on the field for 16 that is, but I like where they sit today.
Well, let's get into the defensive keys. Mine, I'll just get into it real quick, is trust your coverage in this game. Patriots' run defense was really bad, I guess is how I would say, or about late in the season, Steelers game, Dolphins game, but that's when they were playing a lot of dime defense. In this game, I think if you can come out in either base or nickel and trust Stephon Gilmore, trust J.C. Jackson, trust your safeties to cover well against those big Chargers wide receivers, then I think they can stop the run. But if they come out in dime, or they don't play quarters as much as the Chargers, but if they come out in dime defense, I think the Chargers will be able to run all over them. So I think that at least to start the game, trust your coverage, try to defend the run. If it doesn't go so well, then maybe you adjust. But just to start off, trust Gilmore and Jackson because those guys have been great all season.
Yeah, I think Jackson, Jason McCourty are going to be two kind of important players here for the Patriots because with the way Stephon Gilmore's played this season, I'd be pretty confident that he can not shut down Keenan Allen, but limit Keenan Allen and not let Keenan Allen kind of beat the Patriots by himself. It's going to be up to Jackson, going to be up to Jason McCourty to take down those 2 and 3 guys. Tyrell Williams, Mike Williams, both very big wide receivers. Jackson has been great this season. Jason McCourty has been great at times, not so great at other times. And this Chargers offense is pretty well-rounded, especially now that Hunter Henry is back. Who knows how kind of effective he will be after sitting out the entire season with a torn ACL. He's basically 8 months removed from that injury. Probably not expecting him to be fully 100%, but he was one of the better pass-catching tight ends over the last couple of years, so he could definitely be a factor in this game. But, yeah, those 2-3 cornerbacks against those 2-3 receivers, that's a matchup I'm going to be watching.
So one of the things that I love where Doug's head was here, and I think it's really important, and philosophically they did not do this all year. I think it flipped. I think a lot of times it was coverage first, run second, and that's why I hate aggregate stats. That's why I hate cumulative stats, because a lot of times you were trying to do something else that kind of allowed something. And I think the Patriots' run defense was atrocious in several weeks. Yeah. They were not a very good sub-rush defender. You know, if they're going to nickel or dime, they didn't defend the run well. But they're actually a really good regular run defense group, and that's when they found Danny Shelton. He was in the locker room. He was there all along, and they found him.
He's in the back somewhere. It's fine.
And they put Dante Hightower back inside at Mike linebacker, and they simplified things and found the areas where their best guys fit. And regular defense, again, I think we talked about this the show 2 weeks ago, regular defense might only be 20 snaps of the 65 or so, but they're a critical 20. It's to get them out of the other stuff. It's to put them ahead of schedule. I think the Patriots need to be exceptional on first and second down, eliminate this run game part, and why I think this is so important. We spent all week, really working up this idea of Phillip Rivers in the passing game and Keenan Allen and maybe Hunter Henry and all that stuff. The best offensive player on their team is Melvin Gordon, in my view. Now, he's banged up. He's got knees. He's going to be wearing braces on both. We don't know to what extent that will affect him. But you'll think back to the last time they were here, right? It was 21-7 game, I believe. Was it the final end up being 21-13?
21-13.
Yeah, but the time where they had gotten that only 7. What was it? It was like a Melvin Gordon 84. Yeah, it was ridiculous. And it was just an atrocious edge. And it was an edge that was poorly set by Cassius No Longer Here guy that doesn't have fun. He's not here, but I think they defend the edges. Again, this is another story from the season. There's been bad edge weeks, and there's been good edge weeks. But I think reconfigured with the right guys at the edge and understanding that's really where it starts for those guys. They've got it. You don't want to see the track plays off the edge with Melvin Gordon. You got to stop the run first from regular. So I think that's going to be a big thing. You do that, I think a lot of the other things take care of themselves.
We've got less than 2 minutes here for Chatham's Choice. I'll just do it real quick. I'm taking Patriots favored by 4 in this game, so I'm taking the points for the Patriots.
I'm taking the Patriots as well. Melvin Gordon's injury, I can almost see this being a kind of Le'Veon Bell game from a couple years ago with the Steelers where he tries to play, isn't 100%. I think he's a very important player for the Chargers. I'm taking the Patriots too.
So one thing before I get my choice, and I'll do this really quickly, because we didn't talk about special teams, and this is probably the game of all the 16 plus the playoff that we've seen where the special teams I think matter most. The Chargers have been really good, but they've also gotten punts blocked. They've had 2 punts blocked that I recall this year, maybe even more, over center.
Field goal blocked last week.
Field goal blocked last week, but they've also, with King, brought back both punts and returns. So they're very good, and we talked about the Cordarrelle Patterson thing from before. So special teams, the field flipping, really from both sides is going to be a big part of this, so you need to be cleaner there. I'm going to stay away from the line this week as a Patriots fan out there. I feel also the same way that the Patriots will win. I don't know if they'll cover necessarily. This could be a tight one. I think that this could easily be a 14-point game, and it's just comfortable, and we build up wild card games like we often do. Performances in the divisional ends up being a little more of a breeze. I think it easily could go that way, but I think if you're looking with money, I think the safest way here to go is under on that 47.5. Why say that? both of these teams are top 10 in amount, and as far as the Chargers, the low number of drives they take a game, and defensively, the Patriots, the low number of drives they allow from the other side. It's sort of a collision where unders often work well. Don't be surprised if you see a shutout quarter. It often happens. They sort of counterpunch and jab for a little bit, and I think if you're going to put money on either of the two places, you cheer for the Patriots to win. I think they'll win. I think they'll cover, but the money to me looks better on the under.
All right, well, thank you guys for tuning in. Keep it on NESN.com for all of your Patriots coverage today and throughout the postseason.